Let's talk about negotiation. It's a skill that can totally define your career, but let's be honest, most of us feel like we're leaving money on the table. But forget all those intimidating, high-pressure tactics you see in the movies. Today, we're going to apply the 80-20 rule. We're going to find that crucial 20% of techniques that actually get you 80% of the results. And we're going to start with a number that should really get your attention. Okay, first up, just look at this number, 17 billion pounds. According to a pretty deep analysis, that's how much money businesses in the UK alone lose every single year just from inefficient deals. To put that in perspective, that's like losing almost 9 million pounds every single working hour. It's just staggering. So that really makes you think, right? When you walk away from a deal or a salary review or maybe a contract with a client, are you accidentally leaving some of that $17 billion on the table? The data, well, it pretty strongly suggests that for most of us, the answer is a big yes. So how does a mistake this big even happen? I mean, we're talking 17 billion pounds. This isn't just a few bad deals here and there. It's actually a symptom of a much bigger problem, a really widespread, kind of outdated view of what negotiation even is. And this is where things get really fascinating and a little weird. A YouGov study asked business leaders, hey, how do you improve profits? And yeah, you see the obvious answers. Lowering costs, finding new markets. Those were right at the top. But better negotiation? It came in 6th place. Think about that. Despite its 17 billion pound impact, it's basically treated like an afterthought. And this right here, this is the real culprit. The very same study found that nearly half of all professionals, 49%, just negotiate by gut feeling. They're winging it. And another 48% just use the same fixed one-size-fits-all style for every single situation. Basically, almost nobody has a real, flexible strategy, and that's where the money just drains away. So the big takeaway here, the old way of thinking is just broken. It doesn't work anymore. Seeing negotiation as some kind of battlefield is costing everyone a fortune. It is absolutely time to shift our whole perspective from a battle to a build. This slide shows the entire shift in thinking. The old way, the battlefield, was all about win-lose. It was a competition focused only on my needs. But the new way, the build, is all about collaboration. It's a win-win process focused on our needs. We're not just fighting over a fixed pie anymore. We're working together to make the pie bigger for everybody. And you might be asking, okay, why the big change now? Well, it's because the world itself has changed. The game has totally changed. Intense global competition means trying to go it alone is pretty much a losing strategy. New tech means opportunities change in a heartbeat. In this crazy, interconnected world, treating your partners like the enemy is just a surefire way to get left behind. So, if the old playbook is out, what do we replace it with? Well, the good news is it's not some crazy complicated script you have to memorize. It all comes down to your mindset. Just understanding your own attitude is the first most critical step. So let's break down the 4 big ones. Okay, first up, we have our goal. This is the gold standard, fusing. This is the collaborator. The core belief here is that, hey, everybody's needs matter, and a win-win outcome is not only possible, it's the best outcome. This isn't about being selfless, it's about being smart. A fusing mindset builds way stronger relationships and, it just creates more value for everyone involved. This is where we want to be. Then you've got the classic old school approach. This is your typical hard-nosed competitor who sees every negotiation as a contest they have to win no matter what. Their needs are the only ones that matter. And sure, this aggressive style might get you a short-term win, but it breeds long-term resentment, it absolutely destroys relationships, and it often leads to the other side finding a way to get back at you later on. On the flip side of that, you have losing. This is the pleaser, the person who just wants to avoid conflict at all costs. They'll concede on everything just to be liked. But here's the thing, this doesn't just lead to bad deals for them. It can actually backfire. The research shows that if you give in too easily, it can actually encourage the other person to become even more aggressive and demanding. It's a weird paradox, right? And last, we have confusing. And let's be clear, this isn't a strategy, it's a mistake. It's when you're flying blind, basing your actions on bad assumptions. Things like the fixed pie myth, that old idea that for you to win, someone else has to lose. Or just plain old overconfidence. You misread the room and end up accidentally using or losing without even realizing it. So let's put it all together right here. Fusing gets you a win-win. Using, a win-lose. Losing, a lose-win. And confusing, well, that just leads to a mess. Honestly, if you remember one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. Figure out which one of these is your default and start actively choosing to become a fuser. Okay, so we all agree, fusing is the goal. But, it's easy to say, harder to do, especially when the pressure's on. The secret ingredient? It's confidence. And I'm not talking about fake bravado or being the loudest person in the room. I'm talking about real confidence that comes from knowing where your power truly lies. Okay, this is such a great story from the source material. In a negotiation between the supermarket giant Sainsbury's and Coca-Cola, both sides were asked who had the power. And guess what? Both of them, independently, said the other side held all the cards. Can you believe that? Two giants, and both of them thought the other one had all the leverage. It's a perfect example of how we almost always get this wrong. So if it's not just about being the biggest company in the room, where does real power come from? Well, it turns out it comes from a ton of different places. Information that you have and they don't. Your unique expertise, your position in the market, your network, your relationships, your financial strength, even just having the authority to escalate a decision. It's a much, much more balanced picture than we usually think. Now, that list can feel like a lot. So let's apply that 80-20 rule again and boil it down to something you can actually use. A simple 3-part power check. Step 1, what you know. That's your information, your expertise. Step 2, who you are. That's your market power, your company scale, your relationships. And step 3, how you play. That's your network, the numbers you bring to the table, and your authority. And that's really what it all comes down to. Before you walk into your next negotiation, don't just think about what you want. Take a second to run that 3-step audit. Ask yourself, what do I know, who am I, and how can I play? You will likely discover you're holding a much stronger hand than you ever thought possible. And that knowledge, well, that's the foundation for building a better deal for everyone.